This is Lexington Green Television, the show about small business, free enterprise, and independent voting rights. Now, here is your host, Robert Marcoccio.
Good evening. I'm Robert Marcoccio. This is my third show, and I'll give you a little recap on the two previous shows that I've done. Our first show was with an independent insurance agent, and the subjects that we covered was the Obamacare and how it was going to affect small businesses. And we also discussed the gun ban, the presidential gun ban, the United Nations, its involvement in that gun ban procedure. And last week we had Tony Rollo, who was an independent producer director from Tennessee, and we spoke about how the advantages of small business would be to take advantage of the internet and to expand their businesses beyond the walls of their business, to be able to attract more potential customers to their business. Tonight I'll be interviewing the most crucial expert on every business industry in this country, and that'll be you, the consumer. And tonight's show will be an open forum to all callers, so feel free to join in on the conversation, and we'll begin with our first topic, which is the cost of gas. This is something that I think that a lot of the media and a lot of politicians and have especially avoided, because the politicians stay out of it because the high price of gas seems to be what they want. The businesses, every business and every person in this country is affected by the price of gas. There's no way of getting around it. It pays for everything from, has an effect on everything from our food to the cost of our clothing, to the cost of utilities, to the cost of operating our vehicles. It has effects on whether or not we can get a loan, because every time that the price of gas fluctuates, we're left with a question mark at the end of the week. Are we going to be able to pay all of our bills? So the question that I'm asking the consumer tonight is, how is the cost of gas affecting your life? What kind of changes have you had to make in your life to be able to make ends meet? And that's one of the first questions. So if there's any callers out there that want to give their opinion, make a comment on this, feel free to call in. We have some other subjects that we also want to talk about tonight. And the second subject is about taxes, especially the homeowner taxes, and how the homeowner is being pitched against the teachers, and the teachers are being pitched against the homeowners because of that interaction between how the school system is being paid and who is becoming responsible. And a lot of the homeowners who are retired find themselves in a situation where they're losing their homes because they can't pay the higher taxes. And the teachers, on the other hand, they feel that they deserve more benefits or a higher income. And you can understand where they're coming from, because the price of everything is going up. But when you have a section of people who don't have the ability to increase their income, they're in a situation where they're doomed to fail. They're doomed to lose their home. And this is not what the American dream is here in America. They work all their lives. They expected to retire. They owned their own home. They made 36 years of payments on it. And now because of what they reflect as being a raise for the teachers' pension, they're now going to wind up on welfare or worse, out on the street with no place to go at all. So we want your opinion on that too, because in my opinion, the government needs to find a different way to finance the education system. The education system has been going astronomical on the tuitions in colleges. Most students come out of college owing $80,000 in debt. And I think that what we need to do is we need to find another source of raising revenue to support our schools. So our third topic is about the college tuition. We want to hear from some of the young people out there, especially those of you who are going to college. You're caught between a rock and a hard place where you have one party is trying to cut the benefits and the other party is trying to sustain your benefits, but with money that's not there. So how do we solve that problem? I mean, you got a college education, you should be able to think, what can the government do? What can society do in order to be able to make education more of a proactive function of government rather than a political argument to get elected to office? Our fourth topic has to do with information mining. What information mining is the businesses that have started up in the 1990s on the internet that use every tactic possible to collect information off of the internet and use it as a product to sell. Now, I'm not against business. You know, if you have a product, sell it. But how, you know, when is the bottom line of profit go beyond the justification in the amount of information that these private companies are collecting on American citizens? Our fifth subject has to do with free trade versus free enterprise. Should the use of international treaty ban the manufacture and use of American-made products be enforceable here in the United States of America when our Constitution clearly states that we have a right to perform free enterprise without the obstruction of government in the performances of our businesses? Has government become that overbearing? And if there's anybody out there who'd like to join the conversation, please feel free to call in. We'll go back to our first subject, the price of gasoline. Now, one of the things that I had researched when I was running for Congress was why the price of gasoline had actually gone to the extremes that it has gone. And one of the things that I had discovered was something that I had learned back in, it was 2005, when it was revealed by the New York Times that there was a mistake in the contracts that were made between the Clinton administration and the oil companies in 1995. And what these contracts had left out was the clause that that initiated the royalty to be collected on behalf of the American people. Now, Bill Clinton was the first president ever to use the royalties that have been paid to the people on oil since around the 1850s, 1860s. So this is a contract that had longevity, and it was renewed every 25 years or so. Now, to encourage the oil companies to drill for oil here in America, he made our royalties an incentive to subsidize the oil companies to be able to drill for oil here in America with the good intention of making us self-sustained and not having to be dependent upon foreign oil. Well, in that contract, they left out the clause that, like I said prior, that initiated the royalty that when a barrel of oil went above $18 a gallon, that the royalty would kick in and the American people would be getting, I believe it's between 16 and 19% of each barrel of oil that is extracted from American territory would be our royalty. And that royalty always went to pay the government. So when this mishap happened, this exclusion of this term in that contract happened, the oil companies didn't pay that royalty. In 1997, the contract was renewed. And again, the mistake was not corrected. The mistake was discovered in 2005 when George W. Bush decided that he was going to make the same deal and offer the same incentive to the oil companies by using the people's royalty to subsidize drilling and development and research here in the United States on American territory. At that time, the New York Times had revealed this mistake that was made in both contracts, the 1995 and the 1997 contract. When the Democrat Congress had approached George W. Bush about this, the spokesman for the administration at that time had said that it was a good contract, and just because we didn't like the contract, that doesn't mean that we're not going to honor the contract. The truth is that a contract that has longevity in this circumstance for more than 150 years has conditions and that are in this contract that are not considered as being negotiable. And what happens is that when you make a contract with somebody, and I was a contractor for 25 years, and I've negotiated hundreds of contracts. And the one thing that'll teach you more about contracts than anything else is getting yourself into a jam with a contract, which fortunately I never found myself in. But when they negotiate a contract and both parties have a meeting of the minds, is the expression that they use, that a certain terminology or a certain condition is in that contract, regardless of if it's left out or not, it's still enforceable. Especially in a contract that is automatically negotiated every 25 years and has been for over 150. What happens is that either the contract becomes automatically null and voided, or the party who owes the royalty as part of the conditions for the contract, because the contract is a contract for develop the oil extraction on a geographical piece of land. And the contract gives the oil companies the ability to be able to set up on that piece of land rent-free until the discovery of oil. Once the discovery of oil is made, then what happens is the royalty is paid to the United States government, or to the state government, or however the contract is written. In this case, the royalty would have went to the United States government. So what happened was then when they noticed...
Hi, I'm Evan Alessi. I'm over here at the tool crib. I work.
Okay. That was Evan Olasky. Anyway, so what's happened in our is that the people haven't been paid this royalty from 1995 until 2005 when the mistake was discovered. And now the Republican Party is now defending that contract. Well, this went on for about 2 years until the Democrat Congress got fed up and made a legislation. It was called the Act of 2007. And what that did was it had returned the royalty payments to the people. And what it had done was it had ended the ability of the oil companies to be able to raise the price of oil for whatever reason they wanted without having to get the approval of Congress, which was another clause that was omitted from the 1995 negotiation. But the Democrat Party, instead of going after the contract and getting what amounts to over $18 billion that is owed to the people of the United States, instead what they did was they renegotiated the contract, allowed the oil companies to keep the $18 billion in exchange to make sure that the environmental constituency of the Democrat Party in, I believe, in Mississippi and Louisiana, got their fair share of the royalties that are paid to the people. So instead of the Democrat Party coming to our rescue, and instead of the Republican Party coming to our rescue, because when they found the mistake that was made in the Clinton administration, what they did was they shanghaied the American people. And that's one of the reasons why your gas prices are so high, is because the oil companies have been given free rein to be able to raise the price of gas, and the Republican parties don't want to nullify the contract because their constituents, the oil companies, they're making $16.8 billion per quarter in profit. And the Democrats don't want to end this contract because their constituents, the environmentalists, are getting millions and more likely billions of dollars in compensation. And they also want to keep the price of gas up, because as long as the price of gas stays to the level that it's at, then the president has his justification for the subsidies that are being paid in research and development for the research that's being done on alternate sources of energy. So, because politically, the people are caught in the middle with the representation being limited to maybe the 10% of the Republican constituency and probably about 10% of the Democrat constituency. You have more than 80% of the American people are caught in a vice, to where we have no ability to be able to fight these things because there's nobody up there wanting to represent us. Now, this contract, if we nullified this contract, and this contract is nullifiable, because either the oil companies pay us this $18 billion, or the contract is null and void, which means that the oil companies never had the right to be able to raise the price of gas without the permission of Congress, which, in my opinion, gas should run back to the price that it was in 1995, which I believe was about $1.45 a gallon. Now, also, the price of gas, it's one of these things that touches every single part of our lives. They talk about cutting taxes. They talk about cutting programs. They talk about trying to create jobs and stuff. And all of these things that the Democrat and Republican parties are talking about are just lame excuses. Lame excuses. All they have to do is reduce the price of gas. And the Act of 2007 gives the President and Congress the ability to be able to adjust the gas prices, which means they don't have to increase it. They could also have the ability to be able to decrease it for 30 days. They can call a mandate a state of emergency and reduce the price of gas to $1.65 a gallon for 30 days, and the recession would be over. The cost, all of that money would go back into every single person's pocket, every single industry, every single government department. You wouldn't have to cut the departments in, cut back on government. Businesses would see profits coming from what is now losses. We would see the 25, 35, and 45% surcharges being placed on deliveries for every business in this country would be eliminated, putting that 25 and 35 and 45% right back into the small businesses. A company like UPS or FedEx, they would recover millions of dollars overnight just by the reduction of gas. It would create jobs. It would create more revenue for the government. They wouldn't lose anything at all. But it's trying to convince the Democrats and the Republicans to do what most of the people in this country would love them to do. And that just shows you that we're not being represented. The majority of us are not. It's all the small minorities. The 20% of this country is being represented right now. If anybody has anything to add to this, feel free to call. Oh, okay. Randy, go right ahead.
Hey, Robert, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one out here.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I was just calling to say, I mean, the oil market is a futures market, correct? Where the price is determined off of the future consumption of oil?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the technical part of it as far as the stock market exchange and stuff. But I do know that the price of gas doesn't have to be $3.69 a gallon.
Okay. Well, and what my understanding is that supposedly it's a futures market. So they basically estimate what the price of gas is now off of how much oil is available in the future. And per the Institute for Energy Research, they say that the United States has 1.44 trillion barrels of oil in reserves here in the United States. I guess what my argument is that all they would have to do is release some of that oil that's in the reserves,
yeah.
and it would decrease the future demand from the oil companies. Therefore, in the long run, it would decrease the price of a gallon of oil, which would knock down the gas prices, which would make it easier for truckers to move across the country,
yeah.
Goods and services to be delivered. I mean, just the whole market could be stabilized by releasing some of these 1.4, almost 1.5 trillion barrels of oil that we have in our oil reserves.
That's definitely what has to be done, because the trucking companies are, I mean, between 1995 and 2000, more than 500 trucking companies that were in business for more than 20 years went out of business. And they added on these surcharges to cover their cost of gas. So if you do like you suggested, release some of the oil reserves and brought down the price of gas, we would actually see a reduction in the household expense of every family and every business in this country.
Absolutely, and with paychecks, you know, with inflation kicking in, we have the price of everything going up, and paychecks are either staying steady or going down. I mean, we need a break. We need some sort of break, and I feel like that's a power that the U.S. government would have to help us out on that end. So that's, I mean, I just wanted to call in and see what you thought about that, and yeah.
It's one of the solutions. There are many solutions. It's just that the Congress and the state assemblies got blinders on.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Robert.
All right, thank you for calling.
Yes, sir.
Well, one of the subjects that I like to talk about also is about free trade versus free enterprise, because that's the very foundation of our show here. When I ran for Congress and I was running on the platform of representing small businesses, family-owned farms, the small domestic businesses that don't have warehouses or manufacturing companies or assembly or processing companies involved in NAFTA. So any company here in the United States that is not part of NAFTA is struggling right now. And now they have what's called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is going to allow China, Cambodia, Vietnam, Brazil, and I think 3 other countries I'm not really sure of, into the NAFTA agreement. The damage that has been caused by the NAFTA agreement is still repairable if we do something about the NAFTA agreement, and it's either renegotiated to where the private corporations, American private corporations, are not allowed to go and make what's the equivalent of a treaty agreement with these nationalist countries, because that's exactly what's happened. And prior to the NAFTA agreement, this was never allowed. The United States Constitution put a separation between the state governments, who are the representatives of the industries of that state, in Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. This article of this constitutional amendment excludes the state executive or any of the assembly members or to be able to directly make a treaty agreement or negotiate a contract directly with a foreign enterprise. And this is something that's actually happened here in Pennsylvania recently with the governor, Governor Corbin. Now, Governor Corbin has made a contract with a British organization to take over the Pennsylvania lottery. His justification is that it's going to bring the necessary funding for Social Security and other benefits here in the state of Pennsylvania. But you cannot justify any kind of negotiation that violates the United States Constitution. And the Republican Party in the last couple of elections has always subscribed themselves as being the supporters of the United States Constitution. We also have this at the federal level with the federal executive, President Obama. President Obama, on the other hand, is using executive order to bring foreign laws into this country, bypass Congress. It's one thing if we're going and negotiating a contract with the United Nations and we're agreeing on, abiding by certain rules and regulations that have to do with the environment. It's a totally different thing when you're doing this and then bypassing the United States Congress on the approval of that constitutional amendment, or on that law, on that treaty agreement. So what we have are a bunch of loopholes that have been created in our Constitution, beginning with the 14th Amendment, and being expanded by the New Deal of socialism or communism, that happened beginning in 1932 with Franklin Roosevelt. We started to see that the progressive movement in this country is the encouragement of undermining the entire check-in mechanism that's here to protect the self-rule. You can say that some of the things that were brought about by these events have actually demonstrated their usefulness to our society. But to demonstrate the usefulness of our society at the expense of our jeopardy of our civil liberties, there's no justification for this at all. The law is supposed to be made by Congress, and the reason that was included in the Constitution, which is Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution, in case you got your Constitution out and want to look for it, is basically there because the founders understood that if you allow factions, and our entire society is built up of factions, you can't get around it. If certain factions will excel themselves in the political arena for the purpose of acquiring certain benefits for their own benefits and their own needs. This was the reason why it was specifically stated that only Congress can make laws in this country. Well, through the abuse and the inappropriate interpretations of the 14th Amendment, independent agencies now have the ability to be able to make law, a statute, a policy. I mean, they're not making constitutional law, but they're making statutes that are federal, and federal law outweighs state law. So a mandate comes down from a federal independent agency, and there are more than 1,500 independent agencies which are not part of the government, but who have the ability to be able to make policies and statutes of law under the executive without any kind of supervision, without any ability of Congress to be able to review it and make sure that those laws aren't self-serving to that independent agency, has actually jeopardized every American industry in this country. We are now seeing laws being passed in this country that are not being made by the United States Congress. We see laws being enforced by the EPA in this country that are not being made by any Congress, state or federal, in this country. And this is undermining the very foundation of a government that is supposed to be by the people. And this is one of the topics that needs to be addressed in both the Democrat and Republican Party, because neither one of those parties are representing us in this country. This is the reason why here in the state of Pennsylvania, in the last election, the registration for no affiliation voters, which are Democrat-Republican voters, but with no party affiliation, no political agenda in mind, went from being the fourth largest or the fourth largest group of voter registrants to becoming the second largest group with more than 70,000 new registrations from July until November, just before the election. The only other group that bypassed us was the Democrat group, which they had 100,000 new registrations. But the Democrats have they have a mechanism out there in place to be able to collect signatures for their party. The Republican Party and the third party don't have it, and neither does the no affiliation. The no affiliation is not a party. It is a voting group of independent voters who do not like the direction that the Democrat and Republican parties are taking us in. In fact, the Democrat and Republican parties are not the United States government. The people are the United States government. The Democrat and Republican parties are social political groups that assemble the same people of the same frame of mind in order to elect candidates that are going to represent what they feel is necessary to make this society a better society. But that's not what's happening. The Republican Party has always represented the rich and affluent, the international corporations, the corporations that were over 50 employees. They have always represented these people. I mean, that is what you expect the Republican Party to represent, and that's what they're representing. So they haven't changed. The change in our political structure is with the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party has always represented small business enterprise, the sole entrepreneur, the non-union worker, the small businesses with 50 employees or less. They were the checking mechanism against international trade, making deals with foreign nations that were going to destroy American industry, to destroy the American consumer base. Well, that protection's no longer there. The Democrat Party are the representatives of progressive businesses. That means that these businesses are funded by the government. They're nonprofits, and not demeaning them and saying that they're worthless and they have no meaning, but the majority of the people in this country are not funded by the federal government, are not are not supported by the federal government, and we don't make contributions to the Republican Party to where the Republican Party is actually going to listen to us. And one of the least representative groups in the entire country is the very foundation that this country built itself upon, which is agriculture. And these businesses, these family-owned farms, these family-owned businesses are being run, no pun intended, into the dirt. They have practically no representation at the federal level. At the state level, you have the representation of some of the Democrats and some of the Republican parties who are trying to represent them. But the situation is this, okay? In a rural area, you might have 20 or 30 family-owned farms, and in an area such as Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, the population, the urban population, I mean, you have more people in a city square block in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh than you probably have in a 20, 30-mile span of country, in rural country. So the representation for these farmers is out of balance because of the population grid and how the elections fall out. So these are a few of the things that we're trying to change here on the program. We're trying to bring these things out. And, well, the only way for us to be able to change some of the laws that are being made statewide and federal-wise is to have a little bit more control over who is being elected to office. And this is one of the ideas that I had founded with the No Affiliation Alliance. With the No Affiliation Alliance, the idea is to bring the independent candidates in the next election, bring them on the show, go out there and start rallies and start having independent candidates to start to bring about their debate, not after April 15th when the state law says that we are allowed to start collecting signatures, but when the Democrats and the Republicans in September and October of this year start to collect their signatures, as independent candidates start to emerge, they need to be able to get a facility, some organization to be able to get their platform out and to go into the debates process, so that when we come to the Democrat and Republican primaries, that the independent candidates aren't starting out 7 months behind the Democrats and Republicans. And that's one of the first laws that needs to be changed in the state, is that independents should be able to start collecting signatures on their petitions to get onto the ballot at the same time that the Democrat and Republican parties are. I'm going to take a little bit of a break right now, and we're going to show you a small little commercial, and we're ready, Cliff. Oh, okay. Well, these are some of the books that I have written on some of the subjects. The first constitutions of the original 13 states is one that was a compilation of all of the first constitutions. And if you're a history buff, or you want to know what really created the separation of church and state, this is a collection of documents that were the original documents that actually ended the separation of church and state, not the Bill of Rights of the United States Constitution. So another thing we want to talk about is college tuition. Now, college tuition has gone astronomical. And this is being brought about by education for profit businesses. Now, these education for profit businesses are supposed to be very well organized, but they get more than 46% of their funding from government loans and grants that are taken out by the students. And as soon as the students go into default, these organizations no longer have to, what these organizations do is they place the burden on the college student. And once the student goes into default, they set up the student on a program to take the person out of default and place them into another category that is not considered to be a student in default, because that goes against the institution, goes against the college. It also goes against these education for profit programs. So what winds up happening is the student now finds himself in a trap, because now he's paying a higher interest rate and he's paying more money for his education, and there's no way for them to get out of it. And if there's any college students out there, or any people who have fallen into this trap that want to call the show and share their experience about it, because I've known people who were in debt to the government, because now was it Sallie Mae no longer finances the educations. It was taken over, was nationalized by the President of the United States. So when this happened, you no longer have the ability to be able to discharge it in a bankruptcy, which means it's perpetual debt that'll go on and on and on and on and destroy your credit for at least another 20, 30 years until you get it paid off. It'll keep you from being able to get other loans. It ruins your credit. And one of the questions is that is it economically feasible to seek a college education right now when the economy is still in a downfall and government, along with many international industries, are outsourcing the jobs that our college graduates would normally be qualifying for? It seems like our own government has made it more appropriate for us to seek employment outside of the United States than to keep us here in the United States and keep our talents and our education for the benefit of American industry and for American society. These are some of the answers that have to be made by our Congress. And the only way that's going to be made is if we have the people who are elected to office are going to represent us. And that is where the problem is. They're not representing us. And naturally, it goes back to NAFTA, because the federal government is now in business for itself. It's no longer the representative of industries, domestic industries here in the United States. It's the representatives of American industries, American international industries that there's no other way of saying it, that have sold out the American dream for the bottom line of profit. And this is one of the things that was small businesses like my business back in the 1990s was protesting about. We were saying that this was what was going to be the problem. What we didn't anticipate was how bad it was going to get, to the point to where foreign laws were now going to be implemented here in the United States of America. So if you have any opinion, call the number on your screen and let me know that I'm not the only person sitting out there, and other people are either agreeing or disagreeing with what I'm saying. So another topic that we have to discuss is the school system right here in Pennsylvania. The public school system in the state, in York County in particular, is proposing to go to charter schools. And these charter schools are, education for profit businesses, which was one of the reasons why I was bringing up the college tuition. What the question I want to know, does that mean that the homeowners are now going to be obligated to whatever the fees are that are going to be charged by these pay-for-profit education systems? Because I think that's a very good question to start asking the politicians who are proposing this. Because a business for profit is not like the public school system, where the appropriations are approved in Congress or in the state assembly. A business for profit has the ability to be able to raise their prices to whatever cost they feel is justified. And are they now committing all of the homeowners and the property owners, especially commercial property owners, to be committed to supporting the charter schools here in the state in York County? One of the issues that most disturbs me about the way small businesses have been treated in the last 20 years is that it seems like the government, the state governments in particular, and the local governments, have actually encouraged the violation of antitrust laws for these big corporations, chain stores, superstores, that have all convinced the local governments that they can provide more in sales tax than they can collect from smaller businesses, which is one of the reasons why we've seen the transgression of individual mom and pop shops go to the concept of one-stop shopping, where everybody's in such a hurry to get to the mall to do all of their shopping that they bypass these individual sole proprietorships, which are jobs. And the government is encouraging this. And the reason that I feel that the government is encouraging this is because they have sold us out for the sales tax that is promised to them by these big corporations. Another thing that these big corporations have been doing since the announcement of Obamacare and the re-election of President Obama has been the cutting of hours for their employees. A full-time job when I was in my 30s, my 40s, was a 40-hour job. A employer would advertise a 40-hour work week, guaranteed. Now, what has happened since we have changed from the manufacturing customer base to customer base economy to a service-oriented customer base economy, is that these the service-oriented businesses are finding ways to undermine having to pay for Obamacare, which means more people are now going to qualify for government subsidy because they're not making the wages that would qualify them to have to pay for the benefit, which sounds like it's a good thing, but it's not, because the smaller the taxable income base shrinks, the less money there is to put into the Obamacare, which means the higher the rates for those who do have jobs, for those who do have businesses that are making it will have to pay. And this, again, takes away the ability of businesses to expand, to create more jobs, and instead what it does is it encourages more unemployment, and when unemployment runs out, it encourages people to go on welfare or to start some black market type of a business. It only encourages more criminal activity. Small businesses, flea markets, craft shows, antique shops, all of these businesses have lost their consumer base to the price of gas. They have lost their ability to be able to compete because now licensing and taxes have been designated by the local governments, by the federal government, by the state governments, and have also been enforced by U.S. Marshals. And they can give you a $500 fine for not having a $12 license. Flea markets, yard sales, you know, things like this, they are the very lowest part of the free enterprise system. And these are people who are just out there to create a job to subsidize their Social Security or their retirement, or are unemployed and can't find a job. So they go and they sell off their personal belongings at a flea market so they can keep a roof over their head and food in their stomach. They're all becoming victims of the local governments, the state governments, and especially the federal governments that are trying and attempting to nationalize every facet of our society, from how we live in our own homes to the point to where we go out and we work for a corporation or a company. And we find this disturbing because our Constitution guarantees us the ability to be able to use our talent, our trade, and our abilities and our opportunities to be able to create the lifestyle that we want, to be able to pay for our the lifestyle that we do want. If I don't think that working for somebody is paying me to be able to sustain the lifestyle that I want, I have the right to be able to take my life savings, sell off my property, take out a loan, and go out and start a sole proprietorship or some other type of a business, a service-oriented business, handyman service, going around doing whatever needs to be done for a homeowner that doesn't have the money to go out and pay for a licensed and insured contractor. These are my privileges as an American citizen, and this is the reason why I established this show here, to bring this point out and to make sure that everyone is hearing that small businesses, non-union workers, family-owned farms are not being represented. And we need to ensure that in the next coming midterm elections, that we start to elect officials to office that are going to represent domestic business and domestic interest, and fight these people who have taken over the national government, that have sold us out to the idea of one government under the United Nations or under the World Trade Organization or whatever. We don't want to sound like a conspiracy theory television show. We don't want to go in that direction. But there is no way not to mention that these are the problems that face our society, and the only way to rectify them is starting at the bottom, the voter. The voter and the candidate who runs in the next elections. That's where we have to focus. So we're getting ready to say goodnight. We're down to our last few minutes of the show. And we hope to see you next week. And if you missed our first two shows, you can see them on YouTube. If you tune into my website, there are some free articles there that you can read about the Sons of Liberty, about the Constitution, the formation of the Articles of Confederation, and also other articles on some of the issues of today, separation of church and state. Also the problems that we're having with representation and NAFTA, for instance. It'll go through the different situations that we have in our country. And if you want to write us an email, you can go ahead and write us an email and let us know what you think of the show. Any kind of feedback is welcome, because like I said, we're still here trying to build the character of this show. And the best way to build the character of the show is to evolve it around the character of the audience. So, I don't know what else to say, except that I'm Robert Marcoccio, and I run for United States Congress in the last election. I've written a number of books on political issues that you should be able to read at any time. Okay? And I thank you, and good night again, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. And we'll also be seen on Monday at 5 p.m.
This has been Lexington Green Television with your host, Robert Marcoccio. Be sure to join us on the internet at www.marcocommunications.com. Join us each week at this same time and same place.